This segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. All right, welcome back. Martin Foss here. We're going to give you some updates as we go, but we have, Tony Alford being the president of the Levee District, businessman here in town, but he wears many hats. So he's on now as a CPRA member and the chairman of Advisory Coastal Issues. So good to have you here. We're not talking now just Terrebonne. We're going to talk statewide because this storm, we don't really know where it's going. Let's let people know. Let's look at the stick map if we can. Watch the center of circulation as this storm is sort of just riding the stick. Remember, we put the stick at the origin and we go all the way where we're at. Lafourche, Terrebonne, Orleans. Just happens on this particular event, they're right on the stick line, all of them. So if this thing progresses and keeps going along the stick, then naturally we're going to have a lot of rain in this area, maybe not a lot of wind, but I want to bring on Tony Alford now because we're talking several areas, Grand Isle, talking Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. Mary. If it veers a little bit west, comes in at West St. Mary, Lafayette, Lake Charles. That's all under the guise of the CPRA. So, sure. What are y'all working on now? Because it's a big project, but it's sure growing some wheels, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, right now with the CPRA, Coastal Protection Restoration Authority, we have 145 projects going on along the coast, all the way from Texas to Mississippi. And, we assured the governor has really helped us a lot in this process of being able to kick off new projects, carry out old ones, and has really given us some great opportunities to make improvements. We only used to think when we were with Terrebonne, Gordy and I, that, we always talked about you needed to take care of the Barry Islands, restore the marsh, as well as draw your line in the sand with the levee, right? Well, never in my wildest dreams did I think we would be doing all three.
Right.
And so that's sort of where we are now. And we've got a lot of great projects. The state has a lot of great projects going on right now.
Well, what are y'all worried about with this particular one? When I guess our first line of defense, let's go back to the stick shot if we could, Jay. When you look at this path, then of course you got to think of St. Bernard, you got to think of Grand Isle, you got to think of Plaquemines, you got to think of mouth of the Mississippi, Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. Mary. This is about half of y'all coastline.
Right.
So you're talking about, that's why y'all have been trying to program yourselves to get off of Terrebonne and Lafourche, think of the whole state, protect the whole state.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about an event that could, not so much surge-wise, but we're going to get a lot of rain from this.
Sure.
How does rain factor in with you?
Well, so that's why for years, we've talked about and we've put in place, especially Gordy as parish president and some of the previous parish presidents. And I know Jason is pumping down the system right now because of this rain system coming right now. That's why pump stations are so important.
Right.
We used to always talk about these pump stations getting the water out.
The reservoir.
Right. The reservoir, getting the water out. And with the levees, keeping the water from coming in. So this is where the pump stations really come in handy. And of course, when you and I talk, operating those floodgates, you definitely, if you get a major rainfall and it's a minimal surge, you definitely don't want to be closing up all the floodgates with all that rain in the system. So this is where you have a lot of judgment calls going on based on the information, the best information that you have available.
I would imagine the tricky storms would be 6 foot surge, a lot of rain. You're right in no man's land.
Right. Well, with a 6 foot surge, you have to operate the floodgates, right?
Yeah, got to.
But with a 3, 2 or 3, and a ton of rain, you got to make some judgment calls.
That's what I'm saying. We got a little better situation here, but I'm dreading if it would be a 6 and you get 10 inches of rain.
Right.
then you're sort of like that's why
Yeah.
y'all have gotten so good at this.
Well,
across.
so, you know, a big component of that is having those additional flap gates or pipes coming through those barges, those floodgates, so that rainwater flows out, even though you might have to have them closed at some point.
Or if you get a reverse head storm.
Right.
Like
right.
Zeta was and everything
Yeah.
else. But when you're talking about, we're looking at it from the standpoint, let's go back to the map if we can. We're looking at it from the standpoint of this storm coming up the mouth or Terrebonne or Lafourche or St. Mary. But the other half of the state, which this is going to sound really bad, but when we're sitting on here talking to our constituents, we don't really talk about Lake Charles, and Laura pounded Lake Charles, and
Right.
we had a lot of storm. Now y'all are very much statewide locked in.
Oh, yeah.
Because the whole state, and I got to give the governor credit,
Yeah.
he opened up the box on this.
Oh, yeah.
When I've heard more talk about rocking the state and protecting the state than I've ever heard before.
Right. You know, all those barrier islands out there, mainly when you're talking Vermilion and Cameron over that way, rocks, breakwater rocks and rocks are a very big component, as well as marsh restoration and things like that. As you come further east, it's levees and protecting your islands with breakwater rocks, trying to save those barrier islands as our first defense, and then also creating marsh. We have projects on the drawing board right now that are going to be tremendous and fit in for restoration purposes. We have diversions that are taking place. One of the things that we always talk about, you got the coast falling apart at a pretty rapid pace. Erosion is taking place fast. Well, we think using mechanical means, dredging and pumping slurry, is something to try to keep up or try to outpace at the rate that the coast was falling apart. And that's what we're thinking is a way of sort of mitigating that and getting it done.
I've been around reporting for over 40 years. Don't mind saying that I have heard pumping slurry for 40 years. Y'all are bringing it to fruition.
Right.
I mean, so it's not just talk anymore, it's action.
Right.
And I think that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, well, and we've had projects going on even before Gordy and I made it there, and we're carrying out a lot of those projects that have been underway for some time. But we're cranking that up. We're doing more of it. We're talking about land bridges. We're talking about pumping slurry and pinpointing where we want the land built.
Right.
You have to continue to go back and maintain
Right.
To some degree, but. It's interesting to be looking at the whole coast instead of our little region.
But that's why I wanted people watching on
Yeah.
Facebook and YouTube to realize that Tony Alford and Gordy Dove and all of them aren't just looking at Terrebonne anymore. It's a statewide deal.
It's a big picture.
And I want the governor to see it. Give him a pat on the back for what he's doing.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's take a break. We'll come right back. We'll talk more about CPRA and the whole coastline with this storm that we're talking about right now. Don't go away. This segment was brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. All right, we are back, and we've, of course, been talking with Tony Alford, and we had him on this morning, too, with the Levee District, but he wears many hats. We have the CPRA chair now on the phone, Gordon Dove, who is busy in Baton Rouge with a lot of meetings, but we want to make sure we get Mr. Dove on. And Mr. Dove, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Martin. I thank you for having me on.
Oh, anytime. We're looking at this system now. It looks like it's moving across Florida. We have the stick going directly from the center of it this morning, straight at, really the proximity of New Orleans, Lafourche, Terrebonne, St. Mary. Right now, it looks like it's going straight at it. So from a statewide coastal position, which I know is different when I've always come with you and Tony before, we're talking about areas, but now in y'all new roles in protecting the state, how are you looking at this as the CPRA chair? And it's a little different look, isn't it?
Yeah, Martin, it's because it's a lot. It's all the coastal parishes and the state, of course, and that system there looks like that's going to be a rainmaker.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It looks like, yesterday when they were talking about 1 to 2 inches of rain in some parts of Terrebonne and maybe 2 to 4, I'm like, no, ain't going to happen. It's going to be more than that if it holds together. And I was just talking with Tony. You're very well versed on the fact that you need the pumps to pump out the water, to work with the floodgates. So maybe you could give us a little expertise on that, because in this storm with a lot of rain, not so much surge, but still enough, those pumps come in very handy, don't they?
Martin, when I was parish president, I built 30 pump stations, and we put telemetry and SCADA on 58 out of 98, and the rest are all automated, and so they can be operated from remote. They all ought to be running right now, and all your systems, like your Chacahoola system, your 11B, your 11A, your Chauvin area, and your Montague area, etc., all should be under pump right now, and your pumps ought to be running wide open to get that reservoir effect.
Yeah, I know the parish president was on yesterday, Jason Badron. He said they're running full throttle, but I know you and him have talked a lot in your role and his role. It's pretty good to have two people in a role that are working together to try to make it happen, and also having Tony from my area on. Doesn't it sort of pay to have people on a statewide level who have been through these situations before?
100%. Maud, when you go through Ida and you go through Barry and you go through Katrina and Rita and of course, the rest of the hurricanes, the tropical storms and all, you know exactly what to do, and that's what we got to do here.
All right, so Tony, I'll let you join in. When you're working on a state level with Mr. Dove and y'all going to these meetings, I know the governor, he's looking regional, and y'all are looking regional. And so Grand Isle looks like it's going to be first up on this. So how much effect would this have on Grand Isle, a storm like this?
Well, it'd probably have a big effect on any place that would hit, with that kind of rainfall. We're just, I know that Gordy, as chairman, really been pushing to get those rocks in place. As with any other projects, when you're using federal money, you have to go through the Corps, and it's been literally an act of Congress to try to get the rocks in place, in addition to the sand that they've pumped, probably too early. So it's been a project. It takes forever when you're using federal money, unlike state money.
Yeah.
And so I know Gordy's been fighting through that to try to deal with the Corps to try to get that stuff put in place.
And you said act of
specifically in
Congress,
Grand
but
Isle.
you meant it, act of Congress.
No, it is act of Congress.
Gordy,
yeah.
let me ask you, what can Grand Isle expect from a storm like this?
Well, more than it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much of a south wind for Grand Isle to experience flooding on the backside of it, on the north side of it. So they're going to have some flooding on Grand Isle, and of course the rain itself is going to bring, it's going to bring. I mean, you could be looking at 5 to 10 inches depending how fast it's moving.
Right, and that's what scares me. If it sets up and it sits much like we could go back to 85 when Juan sat out there and just pumped a lot of water. Let's do this. We'll take a break. We'll come back with our final segment with the CPRA chair and with man over here wears many hats, Tony Alford. We'll be right back. This segment was brought to you by Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. All right, welcome back. We're talking statewide on these segments because Tony Alford's on the CPRA board. Gordy Dove, who's on the phone, is the chair of that board. Of course, Tony's on the advisory part that reports back with the governor and all, and so does Mr. Dove, for that matter. So, Gordy, let me ask you something. When we're talking about a storm like this and you're thinking regionally, what's the chain of command on this? Who takes charge of that? And can you educate us and the public?
Yeah, well, all your cabinet members and department heads, which I'm on a cabinet of the governor, belong to the Unified Command, which is headed by the governor of the state of Louisiana. And of course, there was a change. You still have GOSEF, but it's run under the National Guard now.
Okay. So that's changed a little bit. So people just have to learn, what's going on. When you talk to the governor, and I know he's been just diehard on getting the situation with the state and his coastal arenas fixed. What's his passion like when he's talking about rocking the coast and everything else?
Martin, he's 100% for segmented breakwater rocks on the coast, along with the Barrier Islands and along with marsh recreation, but especially hurricane protection and pump stations and drainage, because as we constantly build these levees, we have to drain them, and draining them is mechanical, which is pump station. But we are constantly giving the administration and the governor reports. All the departments doing this event and besides this event coming up.
Let me ask you, on a storm like this, and Tony, jump in on this too. With protection across the board, a storm like this, surge-wise, would be relatively nothing, right? Once everything's in place.
I always hate to say nothing.
Yeah,
but
well, yeah.
we ought to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Gordon, the idea is when you talk about a surge, once y'all get everything in place, knocking that surge down even a few feet is instrumental in protecting everything, isn't it?
Yeah, Martin. I mean, we've seen Cat 1s bring in 9 to 11 foot of water, and you brought up a good point. Remember Juan? I mean, Juan came in and it stayed stationary, and it stayed along the coast, flooding just for days. It was, as you know, it was devastating, and so you never know what these storm systems are going to do.
Yeah, it pumped water. I was 25 years old for one. I remember covering it it was South Louisiana Medical Center back then, not Chabert.
Right.
And the rain kept coming and coming and coming for 72 hours.
Yeah.
And what not scares me about this storm is, if we get a stall and it keeps pumping rain, I'm just feeling a lot better today than I was feeling in 1985.
We're in a lot better shape now than we were back then.
Well, Martin, Tony Alford and the levee board have raised a good portion of their southern levees to 15 feet. When Francine came in, it brought in 11.5 foot of water.
Yeah.
And that wasn't that's not strong of a hurricane, but it brought in 11.5 feet of water, so you never know.
Yeah, you're right.
Because the levee system held back. Now one house flooded, thanks to Tony and the levee board and building such a massive levee system for Terrebonne Parish and Coast Lafourche.
Well, good. I know you're on the road, so I'll start wrapping up this segment. But thank you for what you're doing on the state level, both of you. Thank you very much. And we're gonna ride this thing out, see how much rain it produces, and hopefully it fizzles a little bit and it doesn't get stronger. But we're gonna leave everybody with the stick shot. Right now, it's riding, center circulation is riding along that stick. So if nothing changes, it goes in, right at the mouth of the Mississippi. But we'll watch it to see if it meanders either north of the stick or south of the stick. Thank you, Mr. Dove. Thank you, Tony. We appreciate your help.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Gordon.
All right. We'll take a break here. We're going to have updates as they go along. Tomorrow, the updates will increase, and naturally, we're going to ride it through like we always do, and we will not change this shot of the stick. This is where it's marked at. This is where the storm started. I'm just glad we're not originating from the Yucatan or anything like that. So this storm doesn't have a whole lot of time. And to be honest, the more it hugs this coastline, the better it is for a lot of people, including our neighbors to the west. We'd hate for them to have a whole lot of things to deal with also. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more. This segment was brought to you by A.J. Doman Chevrolet. We say yes when others say no.